Let's jump right into where this revelation began. A candid conversation on the Smartless podcast. So picture this. Claire Danes, two-time Emmy winner, beloved star of Homeland and My So-Called Life, sitting down with Jason Bateman, Sean Hayes, and Will Arnett on Smartless. The conversation is rolling along, jokes are flying, and suddenly, Claire drops this bombshell about discovering she was pregnant at 44, and not planned, not expected, definitely not on her radar. She straight up called it an oopsie-daisy, which is honestly one of the last phrases you'd expect from a world-famous actress talking about a major life change. She admitted she was terrified, and you could hear in her voice that this moment shook her. But what really caught listeners off guard was the emotional twist she described next. A strange sense of shame, almost like she'd done something wrong simply by getting pregnant later in life. It wasn't logical. It wasn't fair to herself, but it was real. So when you step back and look at the whole picture, Claire Danes' story isn't just about an unexpected pregnancy. It's about cracking open the stereotypes surrounding age, motherhood, and what it means to embrace the unexpected. It's about a woman who thought she knew the limits of her own life plan, only to discover that life had one more twist waiting for her. And the best part is how she transformed that twist from fear to self-doubt, to a deeper understanding of herself, into something joyful. Her daughter, the one who arrived when she least expected it, now dances around in tutus and fills their home with laughter. And that's the beauty of it. A moment that started with panic ended with a family more complete than Claire ever planned. It's messy, it's emotional, it's real, and it's exactly why this story resonates. Sometimes the most unexpected chapters end up being the ones that change us the most. And she didn't hide from it. Instead, she laid it out honestly, giving us a rare look into the emotional complexity behind that surprise moment. Claire explained that her age played a huge role in that emotional mix. "I was so old when that happened," she said, almost laughing at the memory, even though the experience clearly wasn't light at the time. At 44, she genuinely believed she couldn't even get pregnant anymore. So when it happened, she didn't feel triumphant. She felt caught. The way she described it was strangely relatable. She compared it to being a kid, sneaking around, and suddenly getting busted. Except this time, the thing she felt guilty about was fornicating past the point she thought she was supposed to. It's such a human, vulnerable reaction, and it shows how quietly powerful our own ideas about age, expectations, and timelines can be. Even someone as grounded and confident as Claire Danes suddenly found herself questioning what was normal, what was allowed, and whether her surprise pregnancy made her somehow irresponsible. It's a reminder that guilt doesn't always come from doing something wrong. Sometimes it comes from outdated rules we didn't even realize we'd absorbed. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Claire said this unexpected pregnancy made her feel like she had crossed some invisible boundary she didn't even know she believed in. She talked about finding an edge, discovering this internal line she wasn't conscious of until she stepped past it. That's such a powerful image. Realizing your own hidden assumptions only because you accidentally break them. And as she described it, you could tell it wasn't just fear. It was fascination, like she was examining herself from the outside, trying to understand why her brain reacted the way it did. That mixture of embarrassment, shock, and curiosity created this strange emotional cocktail that she had to process in real time. And throughout it all, she didn't hide her truth behind polished Hollywood language. She spoke like a real person, trying to figure out why her own feelings surprised her so much, which honestly makes the story even more compelling. Now, while all of this emotional chaos was happening, Claire still had to deal with the practical side of things, talking to her OB/GYN, figuring out what this pregnancy meant at her age, and preparing to welcome another child when her life was already full. She and Hugh Dancy already had 2 sons, Cyrus, now 12, and Rowan, who's 7. Their family was well into its rhythm. The kids were growing up, Schedules were settling, and Claire's career was shifting into a new chapter with older children at home. So a third baby, at that stage, at that age, completely reshaped their world. And as any parent knows, the surprise of a new baby is one thing. The shock of a new baby you thought was biologically impossible is a whole other category. Yet through all of that, Claire kept acknowledging how lucky she was, even as she admitted how disoriented she felt when the news first hit her. And of course, no pregnancy story is complete without the classic moment, the gender prediction. At first, Claire's doctor told her she was having another boy, and she just went with it. She wasn't disappointed. She said she would have been happy either way. But then came the twist. The doctor was wrong. Claire wasn't having a boy at all. She was having a girl. And you could hear the joy in her voice when she talked about that realization. Even with all the fear and confusion she experienced early on, that little surprise added a spark of excitement. And after welcoming her daughter, now 2 years old, Claire said she's completely smitten. While she and Hugh haven't made their daughter's name public, she shared a sweet little detail. The youngest Danes Dancy loves tutus. That tiny piece of information felt like a window into the family's home life, a glimpse of a toddler twirling around, bringing brightness into a story that started with anxiety. It's also worth remembering that Claire shared all of this while promoting her new Netflix psychological thriller, The Beast in Me. So here she is, balancing press responsibilities, deep personal disclosures, and the emotional weight of revisiting something that clearly shook her. Many celebrities hide behind scripted answers during promo interviews, but Claire does the opposite. She folds her real life into the conversation, offering context for how she approaches her roles, her family, and her identity as a woman, navigating expectations that society still quietly pressures people into. And in this case, that pressure centered around age. How old you should be to have kids, how late is too late, and who gets to decide. Claire's honesty doesn't just tell her story. It challenges the idea that motherhood has an expiration date, even though she admitted she once believed that herself. Her candidness also highlights how unpredictable life can be. Even when you think you've reached a stage where the biggest surprises are behind you. Claire and Hugh have been together for years, building a life that they thought they understood. They'd gone through the early parenting years, survived sleepless nights, and reached a point where things felt predictable. Then suddenly, life hands them a plot twist. And instead of controlling the narrative or pretending she wasn't shaken, Claire chose to share the messy, complicated truth. She talked about fear. She talked about shame. She talked about confusion. And then she talked about gratitude. That emotional arc makes her story resonate far beyond celebrity news. Because who hasn't faced a moment where life disrupted the plan, forcing you to step into uncertainty whether you felt ready or not? And maybe that's why this story hits so many people so deeply. It taps into something universal, the realization that our bodies, our expectations, and our sense of the right time don't always line up. Society sends women a million messages about deadlines, career deadlines, beauty deadlines, fertility deadlines, and even someone as accomplished and admired as Claire Danes wasn't immune to feeling those invisible rules pressing down on her. But instead of letting them define her, she confronted them. Not perfectly, not instantly, but honestly. And by doing that, she created space for other women to acknowledge their own complicated feelings without shame. You can almost hear the relief in her voice when she talks about how everything turned out okay, how her fear eventually transformed into joy, even if the journey was anything but smooth. You ever hear a celebrity confession so honest, so unexpectedly raw, that it stops you in your tracks? Well, that's exactly what happened when Claire Danes opened up about something deeply personal, something even she admitted made her feel a funny shame. Today, we're diving into the surprising, emotional, and oddly relatable story behind Claire's unexpected pregnancy at 44. How she felt terrified, why she thought it wasn't even possible, and how all of it eventually led to joy for her and husband Hugh Dancy. So settle in, because this is one of those stories where the curtain gets pulled back just enough to remind us that even the biggest stars experience some of the same fears, doubts, and surprises as the rest of us. And trust me, Claire's journey is one you'll want to hear from start to finish, not just because of the shock factor, but because of the unexpected vulnerability she brought to it.